Everyone thought that he was a lonely little orphan boy, but his life changes when his childhood crush turns out to be a dangerous spy and marries him. Asuna was a happy young boy, but everything changed one day when his entire family got killed in a tragic car accident. He was the only one who survived, with scars and bandages. This scared him so much that he refused to make any friends because he couldn't bear to see them get hurt. The one person who decided to stick by him was his childhood friend, Mutsumi Yozakura, the only person he ever talks to. Several years passed by since then, and they both entered high school. Even after a month of being in the class, Asano refused to make any friends. A small group of 3 guys constantly asked him to hang out and be friends, but he rejected them every single day.
Disappointed!
Meanwhile, Masami had gotten friendly with everyone and had become a high school idol who was every guy's crush. She walked over to Asano, sat down with him to eat, and told him to go out with the boys sometimes, as they seemed friendly. But Asano refused to make any friends and instead turned it around, claiming that if she wanted to be so friendly, why didn't she go out with the 3rd year who confessed his love for her? She told him she was not interested and took out her lunchbox, but just as she was about to feed him, Heya, the vice principal of the school, intercepted the bite and started eating it. Asano was surprised as he never heard him coming, while an annoyed Masami told him to go away. He told her that he couldn't stop himself from having her tasty home-cooked food, but decided to leave before telling Asano to meet him in his chambers after school. Later that day, Asano headed over to his office, confused about why he wanted to meet with him. He entered the room and was greeted by Heya, who had prepared tea, and asked him to sit down. Asano felt extremely uncomfortable because of how close Heya was sitting, but was shocked when Heya started asking about Masami and why he was so close to her. He started feeling weird while Heya showed him pictures of Masami, ever since she was a 3-year-old child.
FBI, open up!
Which was very strange as they had only known Heya for a month. He continued telling Asano about how hard it was to keep boys off of her, and how he had to beat the crap out of the 3rd-year guy before he promised never to look towards Masami again. Alarm bells started ringing in Asano's head when suddenly, Heya took out a knife and put it at Asano's throat in a swift movement, telling him to say his prayers. When everything seemed lost, a white-haired girl entered the room through the window, stopping him, and used a flashbang to escape alongside Asano. He woke up a while later in the evening and found himself surrounded by a bunch of unfamiliar faces. His social anxiety kicked in, and he started running away into the wall, confused about where he was, but Masami told him not to worry as these people were all her siblings, and he was in the Yakira house. She introduced everyone. The white-haired girl was called Fuda, the green-haired guy was Shinzo, the pink-haired girl was Shen, the furry one was named Kino, and the buckethead was named Nana. She told him that they were a family of spies and felt relieved after finally telling him the truth after hiding it for 10 years. He started freaking out, but she told him not to worry, as spies were very common nowadays, and you could even book them online. He still thought it was a prank and grabbed a gun from Shinzo, thinking it was a toy, but it ended up shooting, scaring the crap out of him as his whole life turned upside down in a matter of minutes. Fuda told him that they were freelancers and actually had a 4.8-star rating on Trustpilot for completing their jobs. Kino told him that he was the oldest sibling who stayed the most in the limelight in the spy magazines, and was responsible for boosting the image of their family so much. Fuda told him that Heya was the best spy in the entire family, and apologized on his behalf for endangering his life. Fuda told him that when Masami was a child, there was a big accident in which she got terribly injured, and Heya took all the blame on himself. Ever since then, he had become obsessed with the job of protecting his sister no matter what. But all these years, he let Asano slide because he was a childhood friend. It all changed recently when they got an online tip on Twitter about someone planning an assassination on Masami. This gave Heya the excuse to get rid of Asano as well. Suddenly, an alarm started sounding in the house, and everyone got on their feet as Fuda told him that Heya must have entered the house to finish him off.
Oh my god!
Asano started freaking out, but she told him not to worry, as he was probably the safest with them, but honestly told him that even while fighting 5 against 1, their average win rate against him was only 30%. She turned towards Asano and told him that the only way his life would truly be safe was if he married Masami right now. She explained that their household had an unbreakable rule about not killing any family member, and even Hei wouldn't break this rule. All Asano had to do was exchange rings with Masami, and the marriage would be complete, and they could live as a family. The word family triggered his PTSD again, and he started breathing heavily, but Masami told Fuda that it would be very cruel to Asano, who was scared of making connections with people. Fuda apologized for being insensitive, and all of them started getting ready to beat Heya up, when suddenly they noticed that he had already entered the room and was sitting between them. He turned towards Shinzo and told him that he destroyed all his traps and told them to hand Asano over. Fuda stepped up to him and grabbed his tie, swinging him around the air before slamming him to the ground. Shinzo used his robot arms to pin him down, and Kino took some steroids to punch him in the face, while Kango and Shen took Asano away with them. Unfortunately, Heya was unhurt and used his special move to blast both of them away while he stood up, telling them that they left too many gaps in their attacks. Asano was stunned to see how strong these people were, while Fuda told them that she would buy them some time. She ran over to him as Heya started using his spider wire ability to block all her attacks before tying her up to the roof. Shen told Kango to hide Asano somewhere while she took out her phone and activated some drones that descended from the ceiling and started shooting at Heya. Meanwhile, Kango took them to a different room, and together with Masami, they put Asano behind a hidden picture frame. A little while later, Heya entered the room after destroying all the drones without a single scratch on his face, only to find Masami and Asano together in the room. He told her to hand the boy over, but she started running towards him with a gun alongside their dog. But Heya was leagues above them and tied her up with his wires before removing her mask to reveal Kongo inside. Knowing that it was of no use, even Masami revealed himself wearing Asano's disguise, and told Heya that Asano was of no danger to her. But Heya told him that there was only one way he wouldn't harm Asano, and that was if she agreed to never leave her home. This caught her off guard as Heya started walking towards her, telling her that she would never have friends, never have any romances, any fun, and would even lose her internet privileges, but at least this would ensure that she would stay safe forever. He hugged her as she started crying, knowing there was no other option. But Asano, who was watching everything through a peephole, revealed himself and told Masami that she didn't have to do this. Heya told him to piss off as he had no use for him anymore, but Asano shouted at Masami to give her the ring as he was ready to make her his family. Masami cried tears of joy as she took out one of the rings and threw it towards Asano, who jumped forward to grab it. But to their dismay, Heya was much faster and used his spider wires to trap both him and the ring. At the last moment, just when Heya thought it was finally all over, Asano showed him his tenacity and strength by powering through the wires that cut his hands to shreds. But he grabbed the ring and wore it on his finger, completing the marriage and officially becoming a family member. As the others watched, Masami hugged him tightly while Fuda told a distraught Heya that now he couldn't hurt Asano, and would also have to train him so that he could protect Masami at all times. Later that night, Asano got up to return, and even though Fuda offered to drop him back home, he refused and decided to head home together as he thought he needed more mental support right now. He lay down on his bed, looking at his ring, and thinking about the crazy day he had before drifting into a deep sleep. The next morning, he woke up by an alarm, and the moment he opened his eyes, he spotted Heya standing on top of him with a knife in his hand.
Oh my God!
He tried to shank Asano, but he rolled away just in time to protect himself, which impressed Heya as he claimed it was just a friendly test. He asked what the hell Heya was doing in his home, and he replied that this was the traditional wake-up call of the Akira family. Asano rightfully thought that Heya was just trying to kill him, but Heya claimed that this was all part of his training because, to be a spy, he needed to sleep while basically keeping his eyes open. He then told him to get ready for the traditional Yakira morning exercise and used his wires to completely tie him up in the air. Meanwhile, Masami was making lunch for the day when she heard Asano's screams, so she rushed up to see what was happening, only to find him suspended mid-air while Heya forced his body parts to stretch. She shouted at her brother to let him down, but he simply looked at his watch and told her that it was time they all left the house. He quickly grabbed Masami and their bags before jumping out the window as a bomb exploded inside Asano's house, blowing it to smithereens. He put them down and explained that Asano's house was rigged with a bomb sometime last night. He promised to explain more about it, but told him to get one thing into his brain. The main goal of the family was to protect Masami at all costs. He then told them to get inside the car while Masami helped Asano up. Inside the car, he talked with Shinzo, who found out that the bomb was rigged inside the kitchen, which meant that the target of the assassination was Masami. Asano was very confused, but Shinzo replied that information spread very quickly in their lives, and the news about Masami's marriage had spread like wildfire, and almost everyone knew about it. He was still confused and asked why they would target Masami, and Heya replied that the answer to that was very simple. He claimed that Masami was the 10th head of the Akira family. He further elaborated about their family history, and how over the years, they always took part in espionage because their bloodline had a special power, that gave the Yakira family children superhuman abilities. According to him, in every generation, one of the Yakira children is born without any superhuman abilities, and those have historically always been the head of the family. He claimed that even though the head didn't have any supernatural powers, they were the only ones who could give birth to children with superhuman abilities. This meant that without the head, the Yakira lineage and its superhuman people would simply go extinct, and that's why Masami was the legitimate head of the family, and the only person who could keep their bloodline alive. Heya got a bit pissed off at the fact that such a loser ended up marrying her. Because their family was so old and famous, they had tons of enemies who wanted to eradicate the Yakira family, and the best way to do it was to get rid of Masami. While he was saying this, a car approached behind them, and some people loaded and shot a rocket launcher at them, which the driver managed to dodge in time. Asano gets scared, while Hei seems completely chill, as their car gets shot at by multiple machine guns. Heya tells him not to worry since the car is bulletproof and instructs the driver to go faster. The enemies give chase, bringing out a heavy-powered machine gun and starting to shoot at the limo, while Heya calmly drinks his tea. Masami reassures Asano that their pet dog, Goliath, is the best driver around, which freaks him out even more. When the enemies shoot rockets at them, the sharp turns spill Heia's tea, which pisses him off. He jumps on the roof and simply uses his wires to block all the bullets. When the rocket guy shoots another RPG at him, Heia's wires utterly destroy it. After styling on them, he throws his wires and cuts the pursuing vehicles to shreds, making them explode. He then comes back inside as if nothing happened. Heya tells Asano that since he has married Masami, it is now his responsibility as well to protect her at any cost. He hands Asano a gun, instructing him to kill anyone he suspects, and shows him the Twitter account of the person who rigged the bomb at his house. According to Heya, this person is one of the best bombers alive and is incredibly dangerous, but he has one flaw: he is addicted to social media and basically exposes his plans himself. Heya tells Asano to take care of Masami for the entire day, as he has to attend to another job, and threatens to kill him if she even gets a scratch on her. During PE period, Asano gets a notification on his phone as the bomber tweets that the second bomb has already been set. He looks around and spots a shadow moving through the corridors, so he immediately heads towards the infirmary, where the nurse asks if he wants anything. He simply moves away and heads back to class. He watches Masami during the lunch break as she talks to her friends. Suddenly, he gets another notification that the third bomb has been placed as well. He looks around, defeated, and realizes how hard Masami's life is. While he was deep in thought, the three guys walk up to him and offer him some chocolate, which, to their surprise, he readily takes and eats. This shocks them, as they ask what happened to him, since he wouldn't even speak to them before. Asano had totally forgotten about his social anxiety, but it starts creeping back in and he blacks out. He wakes up in the infirmary, being overlooked by Masami, who asks whether he is fine. He thinks about how nice she is, and asks whether she is sure he is the right person for her. He claims that even after being childhood friends, he never knew about her family or the fact that she has to fight to survive each and every day. Hearing this, Masami gives him a karate chop to the head, telling him that he is wrong and that he is the one who entered such a crazy family like hers. In truth, she always wanted to marry him. This relaxes him a bit when he suddenly spots a bomb placed on the ceiling of the room about to go off.
Oh my God!
The bomb explodes with a loud bang, destroying everything inside the room. But Asano manages to save Masami by hiding beneath the couch. He realizes that the bomber is much smarter than they gave him credit for, and that he was putting out updates on Twitter to distract Asano and make him focus only on Masami. He removes his coat, and sure enough, there is a small bomb attached to his shirt about to explode. He realizes that the bomber knew Asano would stay close by, so he used this to his advantage and basically made a bomb out of Asano, knowing it would definitely hit Masami as well. Realizing he doesn't have much time, Asano decides to sacrifice himself to save Masami and jumps out the window, accepting his death. But to his surprise, Heya saves him at the last moment, hanging him by the wires. Heya commends Asano for his actions and tells him that his job got over quickly, so he came to check on them. Asano looks at the bomb and realizes that one of Heia's wires got inside the bomb and stopped its timer, saving Asano from certain death. Heya tells Asano that they are family now, and that family comes first. He promises that even though he hates Asano for marrying his dear sister, he would still give his life away to make sure Asano stays safe. He pulls Asano back inside, and while playing with the bomb, He tells them that their job isn't over yet. Just then, the other siblings also arrive in the room, and Shinzo delivers a handcuffed bomber at Hee's feet. Hiya ties the bomber up with his wire, alongside the bomb, and throws him out into the sky, where the bomber explodes in a fantastic show of fireworks, while the Yakira family, alongside Asano, watches it from the couch. The next morning, Asano wakes up after having a nightmare in which he helplessly watches Masami getting kidnapped. After waking up, he feels a little groggy, and ends up stepping on the tail of the dog, who gives him a nice love bite on the arm. He comes down and is immediately patched up by Masami, who apologizes for the actions of the dog and starts playing with it very cutely. This reminds him of how sad his dream was, and to make sure it never becomes reality, he goes up to Fuda and begs her to train him so that he can become stronger. He claims that he wants to be able to protect Masami from every danger, as even last time he was barely able to save her by luck and would have died if not for Heya. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become strong so quickly, and shows him her strength while explaining that she started training in all the different forms of martial arts when she was just 3 years old and went on her first deadly mission at 6 years old. This means that even for someone with Yakira genes, it took 3 years to master the martial arts, but it would be much, much longer for a normal person. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become stronger just on the basis of his emotions, but is willing to give him a chance. She asks him whether he is willing to get into the Yakira all-out training program, which is probably the fastest way anyone can get stronger. He gets excited, but she tells him to hold his horses as she puts the condition that he has to stay in the Yakira household for a complete month, and only then will his real training start. He thinks it would be super easy as he just has to stay there, but the moment he gets up, a trap activates, and he only barely manages to grab the edge as he looks down to see sharp spikes beneath. Fuda comes to him and claims that she forgot to tell him, but the entire Yakira household is rigged with deadly traps for spy training, so it's not going to be easy. But if he manages to survive, she will train him further. The next morning, he wakes up to the alarm sound of the ugliest looking bird. Because he doesn't wake up in time, a bomb ends up going off inside the room. He somehow manages to get out of the smoky room but activates another trap as a flamethrower emerges behind him and starts burning everything in its way. As he tries to run down the hall, he finally reaches the breakfast table where Masami tends to his wounds. He asks how she manages to evade all the traps, and she replies that the traps don't activate for her, which surprises him. Shin explains that the traps are controlled by a computer, and once a person is able to dodge and disable all the traps, they get accepted as a house member by the computer and get the privilege to activate or deactivate the traps. She further tells him that normally a person can probably clear all the traps in 2 years, which is a very long time. But before Asano could argue, he starts feeling a pain in his stomach. Fuda looks at him and explains that all the food in this house is laced with a small amount of poison to build tolerance against it. It won't kill them, but it will definitely give them diarrhea. If you want a part 2 and want to see our boy Asano get diarrhea, then like this video and subscribe to my channel.